Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Tech Lounge. I know it's been a while, and I thank you guys for tuning in. Tonight's episode is stock versus skinned Android. The first part is just kind of an explanation of what it is, and the second part of the video will be how to actually customize your phones with different launchers, icon packs, and things like that to kind of change the look and feel of your phone to kind of keep yourself from getting bored, or if you want to make the phone look more stock or less stock. Okay, so in the interest of full disclosure, these videos I make purely just for my own amusement. I never really intend too many people to see these. It's just for fun. All the text shown are all my own. I own everything in these videos, and the information I give you is from just my own experiences and from watching other more qualified YouTube tech reviewers. My goal in these videos, of course, like before, is to help you decide if a particular piece of tech that I review is going to provide a good experience for you without really digging too heavily into things like specs and numbers, benchmarks, and things like that. This is, again, it's for fun, and you spend the money, you want to have fun with it regardless of numbers and specs. Okay, so that being said, I thank you for spending your time with me tonight, and let's get started. So, the equipment I'm using right now is I'm filming this video on an HTC U11 in 1080p, 60 frames per second. Let's see. I have my son's Moto G5 Plus that I'm using to represent a phone with more of a stock Android setup, and then the Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus, which we all know is one of the most heavily skinned Android phones. And I'm reading my notes for this from a $200 Acer Chromebook 11. Alright, so what is Android, first of all? As Android users, and we use Android is the Android is the Google operating system for smartphones, sometimes called Android OS, Android operating system. The operating system on an iPhone is iOS. The operating system on my Chromebook is Chrome OS. So let's see. So stock versus skin Android. That's been a long debate of Android phone users as to which one is better, or really it's just a preference thing for the most part. Stock Android refers to the look and feel of the operating system the way Google kind of intended it, which is a very simple look and experience, although it is a lot more customizable than iOS. A skinned Android phone is basically the manufacturer's customizations and overlay on top of Android. So let's go ahead and look at the Moto G5 Plus. I'm going to bring this really close because I know the focus might be a little off. If you look at this, it's pretty much a stock build. You've got kind of a stock search bar. The icons are stock. I believe these are from Android Marshmallow. You swipe to the right, you get the Google feed, a very stock feature, just like on the Pixel phones. The only thing on here that isn't stock is this weather and calendar widget. So if you pull down the notification shade and the quick settings menu, this is for me kind of the giveaway of how stock, a lot of times how stock a phone is. If you look at this is kind of the way Google intended it. If later on when I show you the Samsung, you can tell it looks completely different. If you swipe up, you've got the app drawer. You can tell all the icons are pretty much stock icons. The very few that come with the Moto phones are very unobtrusive, and as far as I know, it doesn't have a whole lot of stuff that runs in the background. So if you like a stock Android experience and you don't want to spend the $800 to $1,000 on a Google Pixel, the Moto phones are actually a really good way to go, and they have these in all different kinds of price ranges. Okay, so let's see. If you look on here too, also a lot of the skin Android phones have their own take on everything. So all the phones sort of have their own cameras, but this one does have this is just the Google phone dialer. And then you have the Google camera in here, you have the Google text messaging app, you have the Google Calendar. All of it is all Google products. Later on, again, when you see the Samsung one, you'll see a Google Text Messenger app and a Samsung one. You'll see a Google Calendar and a Samsung Calendar, things like that. So, all right. So this Moto right now is running on Android 7.0 Nougat. So on my HTC U11, for example, things will look a little different because that was updated to Oreo, which kind of changed the look of the phone a little bit. Okay, let's see. So scanned Android, that again refers to the customizations that a phone manufacturer will overlay on Android in terms of its look and feel and features to give the phone an experience unique to the manufacturer. So the big players like LG and Samsung probably do the heaviest customizations on their phones because they want, one thing is to give you an experience unique to their phones, and then the other thought, of course, is that once you get used to it, you don't go to other phones. You kind of stick with their phones. Okay, so let's see here. So for the Galaxy phone, you can tell this looks completely different. Look at that. That looks completely different. The settings menu looks nothing like how it looks on a stock Android phone. It's really colorful. These icons, you can tell, are Samsung's own icons. The one thing I do really like about the Samsung launcher, though, is how modern and refined and consistent everything looks. How at least the icons for the Samsung products match the widgets. It matches the symbols in the menus and things like that. All of it is very consistent. And then you can see some of the Google products and the other things like that. And by default, it puts frames around all the icons so that they're all the same size. But again, if you go in here, look under Samsung, you've got a calculator, you've got a clock, and then if you go into Google, there's also a calculator and a clock. So it does double up on a lot of this stuff. And of course, Samsung being Samsung, there's probably a lot of things running in the background on this phone that a lot of times people will shut off, either force close them or use an app to keep them from running, so it doesn't take up so many resources. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, one more thing to the Samsung phones, you can tell there's that apps edge, and then you can scroll it. There's the device maintenance, there's a compass, quick select, which lets you select either a rectangular shape, an oval shape, or whatever, and you can kind of box something on the screen and cut it out and send it as a picture or as a video and things like that. You can put the people you contact the most. You can also do things like weather and sports, news, whatever you want to do. So a lot of customizations on this phone, a lot. And you can tell too, the app drawer scrolls sideways instead of the up and down app drawer like the Moto, which is more of a stock feature. So, all right, let's see here. So which one is for you? That depends what you want from a phone. Sometimes it's hard to know until you've owned a few and really played with them. Once you've moved beyond that person who buys a phone just with the intention of making phone calls, text messaging, browsing the web, things like that, and you really start digging in, that's when you start really noticing some of these differences of the different Android phones. Every phone made by a different manufacturer is going to be a little different. Some of them more stock than others. Some of them feel almost like Android versions of iPhones and things like that. So there's a lot of difference. And then a lot of it too will depend whether you primarily buy flagship phones or if you buy budget phones or mid-range. Generally, a budget phone is anywhere from $100 to about, let's say $300. Once you go past $300 into about $500, you're talking mid-range. And then once you move beyond $500, you're pretty much in flagship phone territory at that point. And you can be anywhere from $600 to $1,000 in on the price of the phones. So me personally, after having a lot of different phones, I've always used Android smartphones, and I started off on a HTC T-Mobile MyTouch. I had two of those, and then I had a LG made Nexus 4, which is the Google phone. So, you know, that's more of a stock build. And then I've had a Sony Xperia, which is close to being stock. And then I've had a Galaxy Note 7, which I had to return, which I loved. I got an LG V20. Then I have the Galaxy S8 Plus, and I have the HTC U11, which is also very close to being stock. At least it looks stock. The menus look stock, and then there's a couple of HTC features built in again, but that are similar to Moto, very unobtrusive. But there are minor differences too in the look and feel, but otherwise very stock and a very smooth running phone. So sometimes too, the more heavily customized they are, it sometimes messes with the software and it's not as smooth as you like. I mean, this is smooth now, but trust me, every once in a while, especially with the Samsung phones, they get kind of glitchy and jumpy. Whereas the HTC is always really smooth. The Moto, for the most part, is generally really smooth. So, but me personally, this is probably going to be a very unpopular thing to say. I like the skin phones. I like the experience, the different experience you get from each one. I've set up my phones to, I've actually, and I'll show you on part 2 of this video where I show you customizing. I have the Google Pixel 2 launcher. I sideloaded that onto my HTC U11, and it's got the Google Now, the Google feed when you swipe over to the side and such. And honestly, I get kind of bored of it, to tell you the truth. It's great that you can customize it when you use a third-party launcher added on top, but really, I love how the Samsung phones look, and for me, that's a huge part of it. It is just the look. If I don't like the way the phone looks, I don't really enjoy using the phones, regardless of how smooth it is or how many features it has or whatever. So that's me. So in the next video, I will show you guys how to customize your phones with third-party launchers. The launcher is basically really quick, just a grid that sits on top of your home screens. Things like the notification shade and the settings, the quick settings, that's not actually part of the launcher. That's part of, I guess that's part of the operating system. So things like Nova Launcher or the Pixel Launcher, whatever secondary third-party launcher you put on top of the one that originally came with the phone, it can't change some of these things in terms of their appearance and their function, because those things aren't actually part of the launcher. So, but otherwise the launcher is basically the grid that all of the stuff sits on, and when you put a custom launcher on the phone, it allows you to also buy custom icons to change and custom widgets and things like that. Otherwise, either you can't modify it, or with the Samsung phones, you can actually go into the Samsung theme store and buy different themes, different icons, different wallpapers and things to put on top to customize the phone too. So, okay, that's it. I hope that was informative, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good night.